Chinese pharmaceutical company, Novartis, to provide its fixed-dose combination of artemether and lumefantrine, Coartem, at cost for public sector use in malaria-plagued countries. Coartem is the first ACT pre-qualified by the WHO.
And what happened is that first, almost no government was interested to buy the drug, and we saw no pickup. But then WHO changed the policy, and then we saw a change in behavior, and some governments, like Zambia, for example, placed some orders.
I'm quite happy to note that the global community have actually risen to this challenge. For Zambia, we are at a level where we are actually scaling up the provision of Coartem to all the districts. And everybody in the districts is very, very excited to see a new drug, a new wonder drug, in inverted commas, which is providing relief to the citizens.
Dozens of countries started to use donor funds to buy ACTs, rapidly increasing the demand for artemisinin.
We saw something we didn't expect, which was that suddenly the projections of drugs, the amounts of drug which would be needed of Coartem increased, and we simply could not produce so much because there was not enough raw materials from the plant, because it's an extract from a natural plant. At first to plant it, have the seeds, plant it, grow it, harvest, extract, and then produce, and then etc. It's a long cycle.
These days, to meet the demand for ACTs is a formidable challenge. The artemisinin derivatives need to be co-formulated with other drugs to create ACTs and then delivered to clinics in Africa. The manufacture of ACTs is highly dependent on the timely delivery of Artemisia annua and artemisinin arriving from both China and Africa. Thousands of farmers across China are now growing and harvesting Artemisia annua.
就是听到那个消息嘛，那个我们国家那个算第二大发明，能在世界上给人家那个拯救那么多小生命，那你说值得骄傲不呢？还是可以。
Although Artemisia annua traditionally grew in China and Vietnam, today new plantations and factories have been established in Africa. Effective drugs to battle malaria are desperately needed in Africa's rural centers. The clinics in these areas are the only access points people have to conventional Western medicine. Delivering drugs to the clinics is a challenge, even when the medications are available or brought to an African port city. Africa's weak infrastructure stands squarely in the way of distribution.
It is fundamental in the health education, the education overall, but the health education of people, and then make sure people get access. Drugs are available, but they need to reach the patients.
With an inconsistent availability of treatments, mothers like Angela can only wait and hope for the arrival of effective drugs. While the complexities of distribution remain, there is a new fear: resistance to the only effective therapies available, those that are artemisinin-based.
With regard to the artemisinin drugs and resistance, I think one of the key things, though, is that there's still a lot of what we call monotherapy. That's just artemisinin without combination on the marketplace, and that's a serious threat to this class of drugs.
Malaria experts fear that ongoing use of artemisinin monotherapies may lead to resistance to all ACTs.
No matter how effective these drugs, most of the cases, unless you have combine the different drugs, chance for drug resistance is going to emerge very quickly.
In September of 2005, the WHO called on governments to use artemisinin correctly in combination therapies. Then, in January of 2006, the agency officially requested that pharmaceutical companies across the globe stop distributing and selling artemisinin monotherapies.
Once we lose artemisinin, basically we are dead. And this is the most effective variable to look at this moment. And if we lose that, it will take at least next 10 years the new drug will emerge.
The WHO has restored hope in the fight against malaria by improving access to effective medicines and by helping countries develop better distribution and monitoring programs.
While Artemisia farmers in China and Africa worked to maintain a much-needed supply line of raw materials, a production plant in Suffern, New York ran 24 hours a day during the ramp-up phase in 2005 to meet the demand for critically needed ACT drugs.
Our ramp up here at Suffern, I know the batch sizes have increased incredibly, and like I said, we're planning to put out of this site 20 million of these by the end of the year, and we just started.
The round-the-clock production of Coartem represented a near 10-fold increase from 3.6 million treatments in 2004 to 33 million treatments in 2005, with 62 million treatments then delivered in 2006.
We're hoping that everyone will be able to get Coartem that needs it.
The vast complexities of this disease continue to challenge the global efforts in the fight against malaria. Drugs to cure malaria now exist, but still not all patients are getting them. The primary task ahead is to solve distribution and education problems. Through the continuing efforts of people on 4 continents, some patients are lucky. Angela finally receives a much-needed treatment for her daughter Charita. After her 3-day treatment of artemether lumefantrine, baby Charita's condition is rapidly improving as her malaria fades. While many continue to battle malaria, baby Charita is among the fortunate few that prove malaria can be defeated.
Lots of children die every day of this very preventable, very avoidable, very treatable disease. It's a tragedy, and it's a tragedy that we are beginning to turn around.
From the Artemisia annua farmers in China, to the factory workers in the United States, to malaria sufferers in Africa, this is a global initiative to rid the world of malaria, and millions of people are benefiting. A victory against this crippling disease translates to a better life. The tools to control and possibly eliminate the disease are available, and efforts are moving forward at an unprecedented momentum. In the end, the promise of a malaria-free Africa will encourage a sustainable economy and will ultimately benefit the entire world. From now on, the message is one of hope.